Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 100 Pounds to Freedom. Eugenia, good to see you. Welcome.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you here. I was just telling you off camera, I was reading through your story and I thought, wow, you've got an amazing story to tell. So let's dive into it. So the weight gain didn't really start until you had your first child.
Yeah, so I always struggled with like body issues through high school and school. So a lot of that was mental. So I kind of really focused on keeping my weight down. And, you know, when I was in high school, we were talking about the peak of like Paris Hilton, for example, where super tall, super skinny, no boobs, no ass, like all those kind of things, right? So that was kind of the epitome of the perfect body at that time. You had to be really skinny. You had to be doing like hours of cardio. It was really that sort of supermodel look.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Paris kind of embraced that vibe, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I tried to do as well. So I was always like very, very skinny, but I was doing hours and hours of exercise and cardio every day. And then once I had my son, obviously my hormones just went all out of whack. And then that's when I gained over 20 kgs with him. So obviously I was severely underweight. I was at my lowest when I was like 22. I was 41, 42 kgs.
Wow. And how tall are you for context?
5'6".
Yeah. Okay. That's
37 centimeters, yeah.
yeah. That's bordering, I would say, anorexic, right? It's
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I was shopping. So I used to work at Smith & Co. for the people, that were living from New Zealand. And I could shop in like the Dior kids section
Wow.
because like that's how tiny my hips were. And I thought like, oh, this is great. I can buy like, expensive things for way cheaper because I can fit the kids stuff. But it didn't hit me there was actually a problem.
And you put on, like I say, a little over 20 kgs with your first child. How long did you hold that weight for? Was it like a few months or a few years or?
So I came down pretty quickly to 60 kgs, but for me that felt like quite overweight, but also taking into account I had a C-section, so my body doesn't deal very well with working through all of the drugs that they put in you. You go under, so it's really puffy. I already have issues kind of working through any excess water within my system. I already hold on to quite a lot of water. So it was hard to lose it up to a certain point. And then kind of once you have a baby and you've got other, then you're thinking about maybe like getting married, buying a house, all those things. And then the normal stuff, the everyday stuff sets in, like, living life, like trying to get to daycare, trying to work full time, trying to deal with a sick child, save for a mortgage, things like that. And then you end up gaining weight because of convenience. Like there's a cafe at the bottom of my work. So I didn't have time to meal prep. So I just ate. Like I just bought my food every day. Like, the venti lattes, and that's kind of how you get through your day. So I lost half of the weight quite quickly. So I got down to about 60. And then I struggled to get down any lower. But in reality, about 59 and 60 kgs, the perfect weight for my stature.
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at the older BMI kind of level, 59 to 60 is actually kind of the perfect weight to function and be healthy. But I was aiming for that, like, back to get into the 40s. So that's where it was sort of like the struggle.
How did that mess with you? Okay, because let's say we agreed on the fact that in the 40s is way too light for you. How was that mental process? Like, how did you struggle? You're aiming for 40. Somewhere deep down inside, did you know, hey, gee, that's not actually healthy, but that's where I want to be?
When my son was born, I was just turning 23. So I wouldn't say that that's developed enough mentally to kind of work out all your life shit, if I can swear on.
Yeah, 100%.
So I had a lot of baggage and sort of past stuff that I didn't even know existed at that time. So the mentality that I was brought up with, like, if you're good enough, you'll make it happen. So the mentality I had was that I wasn't trying hard enough. I was eating too much. So it was always like, I need to exercise more. I'm just like a fat piece of shit that can't get my shit together and can't lose the weight. Like if I was really, really dedicated, I would find a way, whether that meant working out 6 hours a day or twice a day or eating like one meal a day. It just meant I wasn't working hard enough. So, and then when you're contending with being like that fit, because I was fit, I was like in every sports team. I was one of the fastest kids in sprinting at school. And so I kind of, when you then have a baby, have a C-section, and your whole body changes, right? Not just the food, but like your entire body changes and you're no longer like the center of your universe.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if I wanted something, I could go do it because it was just me and me, like me, myself, and I. And then when you have a baby and then you can't even go to the supermarket without like, oh, I've got to bring the baby and I've got to bring the bag and I've got to bring the food and, so I think like what you're contending with is like you're not first priority anymore, but then you're also contending with kind of feeling like you're losing your body, you're losing yourself. And especially like for me at that time, I felt like I wasn't good enough in any other way. And I felt like the only thing I could control in my life was my body.
Right. Okay. So all these other things are outside of your control, but there's this one thing that you can grasp onto and you're in control of that. And yet you've got all these other things going on. You've got full-time work, obviously, new child into the world, new mum, which, comes with lots of challenges and learnings, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. And then how far apart? So you've got 2 children.
Yeah, you got 2.
And weight gain with both children.
Yeah.
And how far apart are they?
Yeah, so my son's about 4.5, 5 years. So there's a decent gap.
Yeah.
So my son's actually turning 15 next month.
Okay.
And my daughter just turned 9. So yeah, about 5.5 years.
During that time period, did you reach your goal? Did you get into the 40s before you had your second child?
I got to 50.
Okay.
So what happened was obviously I went back to work, did all that stuff. And then eventually I was like, you know what, kind of sick of my own shit at this point. And then at that time, bikini bodybuilding was just really, everybody was all of a sudden doing it. Like, obviously on Facebook, I was just seeing a lot of people that I knew, not necessarily friends with, but like people I knew from school that all of a sudden doing it. And it seemed really glamorous, like you've got a nice body with muscle without being muscular, because bikini and actual like bodybuilding, like figure, they're very different. So bikini is meant to be feminine, almost that sort of like beach vibe, but enough tone to look like you work out without kind of looking into like a man per se. Like
you're looking athletic without masculine vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially in the face. Yeah, there's a lot we could go into there.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of other things to go into on that side. But so that was kind of, and I was like, okay, I'd actually kind of like to look like that. And so it just became like a thing at that time. Everybody seemed to be doing it like left, right, and center. And it was like a buzz thing at that time. And I thought maybe this is a way to get my body back, because it's structured.
Yeah.
So
let me just dive into that a little deeper. Were there gyms that were specifically marketing towards the bikini body? Was that in their marketing?
Yeah, Les Mills.
Yeah, right.
it's not so much, it wasn't the gym brands, it was the type of people that were the trainers and the type of people that were sort of up there in that bodybuilding world and were more kind of capitalizing off the money off it. They were more like the influencers. They were on Instagram. They were constantly being sponsored by big brands like EHP and, like all those like massive supplement brands. All of those people, well, the majority were trainers at Les Mills.
Right.
So there was this sort of hype that Les Mills was kind of the place to be if you not only wanted to look good, but like it was cliquey, right? It was like, hey, if you want to be part of the crowd, this is where you've got to be. And Mo, who like did the IFBB for New Zealand, he owned Extreme Nutrition, and that was right next to Les Mills. And how a lot of those trainers made their money was they would go to IFBB, and then you could say, if you were training someone, you would send someone to Extreme Nutrition, and it became this like fulfilling cycle, right? Like there's a constant lead generation for everybody. Like, hey, I send you the people to buy your supplements. You send me the people for me to train, and I'll make money off training them. So it's like an ecosystem, right?
Love it, love it. Genius model, and good for everyone, right? Yeah, it sounds like win-win-win, on the outside anyway.
Well, this is the thing on the outside, but think of how many people, and this is the part we haven't got into in the conversation yet, that after doing bodybuilding and for years, not necessarily competing, but I still train like a bodybuilder.
Right.
Without necessarily the rigidity of like having to eat in the car at specific times of the day and things like that. But bodybuilding is hands down the worst thing you could do if you want to basically fix all the mental shit you've got going on and the things actually responsible for your body looking the way it is. Because what people don't understand is your body is like a physical reflection of what's going on inside of you, right?
Yeah.
Because if you feel good, you look good. And if you feel good, you want to look after yourself naturally because you know that looking like crap will make you feel like crap. But say if you're, and I'm not bagging anybody, but say if you're overweight or, you're constantly eating crap, that's a reflection of how you treat yourself mentally. You kind of, in a way, are telling yourself, I'm not worth the time. I'm not worth the effort. I'll just let myself go.
That resonates with me so deeply, Eugenia. I, for a longest time, felt like rubbish and would fill my body with rubbish, which is how I got so big. I do think that the counter argument, and it's probably not so much working out, because I love resistance training, but it's probably, for me, it's more something that really helps me is walking in the bush. Like I do a lot of walking, at least 5 days a week, and just getting out there. And this is my actual routine. I might as well break it down for you, right? This is my actual routine. So I'll have the AirPods in and I'll be listening to alpha brainwaves, but not on noise cancellation, on transparency. So I'm getting the bush sounds and the birds, and but then also getting this as I'm going through. And it's like the most healing thing. If I'm ever feeling down or like a piece of shit, I go do that and it's like, whoa, I've got my life back. Exercise in that regard, for me at least, can help kickstart me feeling good again and then eating better.
But there's a lot of science around being in nature. So like obviously being in the sun, especially like say listening to the sound of rain, like water by the beach and nature, like native bird sounds. There is a lot of science behind that of how healing it is for the body. Because if you think about it, we were never meant to sit inside all day long every day. Yeah. That's just a construct that was created at some point that, hey, we've got to have more purpose than just being. And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is like, if you look at any other animal, mammal species like on Earth, their purpose is just to exist. It's just to live every day, to reproduce, and then eventually, they come full circle and then they die, and then their offspring go through the same cycle. But as human beings, because we are, I suppose, the smartest species, we're almost we're almost too smart for ourselves. And we think like there has to be this massive, massive purpose, this massive reason for being beyond actually just existing. And if you think about it, the happiest that I am is just sitting at the beach with a coffee in the morning, watching the sunrise and just listening to the waves. And I could literally do that for hours.
Yeah, I totally feel that. It's a good segue into sunlight. For me, that's been a game changer. Like, a little challenging in winter, right? But on those beautiful winter days, just the first, as the sun coming up, the same thing, coffee, preferably in nature, but if not, I've created like a lovely sort of Balinese-esque veranda where the sun comes up at home, and just staring at direct sunlight. And what's your take on that, on actual light for health?
Yeah, there's I have had like quite a bit of research around it, that if you there's another guy that does a podcast. I'm trying to, Dr. Huberman.
Oh yeah, Huberman Lab, yeah.
Yeah, so he's done like a segment on how it affects the irises when you look at first sunlight of the day. So not like once the sun has risen, but like the very first sunlight of the day. But yeah, I believe it's just incredibly, first of all, like vitamin D, helps heal as well. So I'm not sure if you know, but like when COVID first came out, there were countries in Europe where part of the recovery process is they would literally wheel people out to the top of the hospital and just expose them to sunlight. They would just sit there.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, very cool. I love that. Yeah, I think we might have listened to the same episode. That's where I got it from.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, and I started trialing it probably sort of the third quarter of last year, and it's been the single biggest positive impact on my sleep, hands down. Yes, so good. Let's jump back into, you had your second child, you packed on over another 20 kgs. Let's give the audience some advice on how you managed to drop the weight, because I'm sure there's a number of new mums out there that are going to be listening, and they're thinking through the process of, they've had the baby and their hormones all over the place, and potentially they're feeling unattractive and wondering if their partner still loves the new version of them, and they're wanting to drop the weight. What did you do? What worked for you?
Yeah, so definitely the second time around was different, because the first time around I did the bodybuilding comp, and when you come off that high, because if you think about it, you're working for months towards something. It's almost like planning a wedding. You're like planning it for a year and a half. It's all like exciting, and then you have this one day which is like peak emotion, whatever, and then the next day it's like this massive, it's just over. Right? And I remember being 50, so this is within a couple of days still of being on stage, and I was looking in the mirror, and I felt attractive on the outside, but still really ugly on the inside. And so that's when I knew, because, and this is what most people do, they think that, when they're unhappy, they think like, if I just lose 10 kgs, I'll be happy. If I can just fit into a size small or size 6 again, I'll be happy. And they think that magically being physically attractive will make all their problems go away. But it hit me in that moment that the reason I was having all these body issues and had the weight gain to begin with was because of how I treated myself and felt about myself on the inside. So everything was, if you think about manifestation is really about having thoughts and a vision and bringing it out into reality. So if this is what I was trying to say, your body is like a reflection or a mirror of what's going on inside you. So either extremes, like even if you look at bodybuilders and they're constantly trying to chase that, like, oh, how do I get to 6% body fat, then 5%? You know, how it's also an obsession because you don't feel good enough where you are. Right. So what eventually helped me is loving myself. So, and, you know, it was therapy, it was leaving the wrong people, the wrong relationships, the wrong friendships, the wrong jobs, finding my purpose in the sense of what do I actually want for me and for my life, and how do I get that by doing something like super fulfilling that makes me happy and feel good.
Walk me through the catalyst. So was it one day you woke up, or was there some kind of major moment or drama and there was a line in the sand and you thought, no, that's it. I am now going to love myself, and all of a sudden all these different doors unlock? Or was it a gradual over time thing? What happened?
So the decline was gradual. So yeah, like I dealt with, after the fact, I realized I was dealing with like postnatal depression. And when I was reaching out to people like midwives, GPs, they were just like, oh, it's just your hormones. It's just like the natural part of having a baby. And I'm like, no, but I don't think you should feel like your baby's not yours, because that's what postnatal depression feels like. It feels like you're actually very disconnected from everything and everyone. So it's like depression, anxiety, postnatal. So that was all feeding into it. The pressure of having to be the perfect mum, having to also make money and be everywhere at once and be everything to everyone and nobody looking after you. So that was a gradual decline. There was an absolute line in the sand. This is not something I talk about a lot openly. I have talked about it on my podcast once. But yeah, there was a point where I felt like, with all these things going on, I was like, is this it? Is this what I have to do for the rest of my life? Right? Like, do all these things for everybody and still feel like nothing? Right? And yeah, so I was away on a work trip one time and I tried to take my life on that work trip. The line in the sand was when I was in the hospital and my co-worker rang my husband, told him what happened. He said, put her on the phone, and he was like, well, you better find a way to get home because I'm too busy at work.
No.
And in that moment, I knew it was over. But then she drove me home. I got home. He gave me kind of a night to myself, and then basically treated it like, so I took like a couple of weeks of work, which is obviously not enough, but he was like, well, we can't afford it, so you have to go back to work. Too bad. So this is where the whole like having the right people around you matters, right? And yeah, he treated it like a holiday, like I was just, he went as far to say as like, I'm a shit mum, I'm just looking for attention. You know, I treat him like crap, even though I'm, and everybody else like crap, even though I was the one like doing everything and having none of my needs met. So in that moment, I knew.
Yeah.
But like the 3-day period, and I remember the moment I was sitting on my bed looking out. We had like a big glass window looking out over Rangitoto. And I remember staring out the window and being like, I'm done. And I was like, the pivotal moment was that I was no longer waiting for someone to save me, or I was no longer waiting for someone to come to me and tell me, you are worth it, you are still beautiful, you have so much to live for, you have so much to offer. I was no longer waiting for that like validation. I was like, you know what? If I don't want to feel like this anymore every single day. I want to be happy. And the only one that's going to be able to give that to me is me. So that was the pivotal moment, knowing that I was actually responsible for my own happiness and that I had all the power to change it. Whereas before, I was outsourcing all my power. I felt like, having to pay bills took away my power. My marriage, like that was taking away my power because I felt like nothing. So there was like all these things in my life I felt were out of my control and that things were happening to me, not around me. So that was very, very pivotal, feeling like everything was against me. No matter what I did, it didn't matter. It's like the world was just out to break me down. And in the moment where I was like, I no longer accept this shit from life and other people, and I no longer accept the shit from myself. The stories that I tell myself about why I'm not good enough, about why I'm not where I want to be, about why I don't deserve better.
Yeah, I love it. So basically, you were like, there's no one coming to save me.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to get my life back, it is 100% up to me. Yeah. I just want to backtrack a minute. I want to dive into your mind here, Eugenia, and talk about what were the thoughts and the process leading up to your suicide attempt, if you're comfortable sharing them.
Yeah. It's hard to explain a process because basically, so part of depression is catastrophizing. So basically you kind of create a catastrophe before it's happened. So a lot of the patterns of like anxiety and depression is about trying to control events that haven't happened yet. So if you think about, like I didn't want to go to parties or gatherings or whatever, because it's like I was constantly thinking of what might happen. And it's quite selfish I don't like the word selfish because when you're depressed, you make it about you, but not in the sense of selfishness. So a lot of people, and like something that was said to me in my marriage, like, oh, you think you're so great that everyone's just constantly thinking about you. So his interpretation was that I'm so in my head because I think I'm so great, everybody should be worrying about me because I'm so worthy of their time and energy. But in depression, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're so scared and afraid of people thinking about you that you just kind of want to disappear. Like you just want to, like if you're in a room, you want to be right at the back where no one can see you in the dark. You want to be able to like slip out with nobody noticing and things like that. You don't really want to bring extra attention to yourself. So like when I went to the gym, I'd wear like really, really baggy hoodies and stuff like that, which is quite interesting now because all the things that people found attractive about me, I was trying to hide because it would get attention. But in my mind, that attention was like people staring at me and talking about me. But now where I am is like, well, but they were staring and talking because they're attracted to it, not because they're repelled by it or because they wanted to stand in a group and be like, oh, she's so disgusting or whatever. But when you're like in that mindset, everything's negative.
Yeah.
Right? There's no real thought process because I knew I was in a spiral, but once you go so low, because it's you have a negative thought and then it repeats on itself. And it's quite neurotic because when you have anxiety and depression, for me personally, you relay the same moment again and again and again to the point where you've thought it so many times, even things from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but they feel like they just happened like 2 weeks ago and you feel the full brunt of like the embarrassment or whatever, the shame, whatever it was. It feels like it just happened last week. But then when you step out, it actually happened like 15 years ago and you're like, wow, I'm still holding on to that.
Yeah, so powerful. Let me ask you this, and again, feel free not to answer. Was it planned or just spontaneous?
No, it wasn't planned. I was at a work function and I had too much to drink. So that had I not, I probably wouldn't have. But if you look at my life, it would make sense why it happened because like my dad's an alcoholic. And, you know, when I was in school, high school, it could be like 5 p.m. in the evening on a school night. And I wasn't allowed to, the whole house wasn't allowed to have locks, except for like the front door, obviously, or things like that. And that was more like control over me from my parents because growing up, I really felt like a possession, not like a human being that was allowed to like have their own emotions and have their own expression of themselves. I was a direct representation of them. So, and I would like eventually got to a point when I was like 16, 17, I was like kind of begging to have locks like on the bathroom at least, or like, so we didn't have locks on the bathroom, like in my room. And I was told no because I might be getting up to like no good. And, you know, it was sort of like that kind of,
So no personal space.
yeah, no
like, at all.
personal space. And nor was I owed it because I'm their child. They can do whatever I want, whatever they want, because I don't get to have my own. They had me, they own me. Like that's kind of how it was. So my memories are, you know, when I'm like home from school, maybe watching TV in my room. My dad might have stayed home just getting drunk all day, basically. Was not really able to hold down a job. And he would come into my room and he would say things like, I never wanted you. Like, you ruined my life. My life was so good before you. So he would say things like that. Round about the same time, you can kind of start to make sense of like how my relationships have kind of carried that same pattern, because you attract people that on the inside you actually want them to like invalidate those feelings. I guess that's where that whole thought of like waiting for someone to come and say, hey, you are worthy, you are lovable, it's not you. That obviously never happened. So around about that time, I also had a boyfriend at high school, like my first. I thought it was like going to be my first love, and you know, what do you know about love when you're like 15? But in that moment, like you really think it's like it's love. And then so he broke up with me, and then he would taunt me through messages telling me to kill myself. So he would say like, you're a waste of air. So these like words are etched into my mind. Like I remember, same thing, if I remember it like it was just last month, right? It doesn't feel like it was 20 years ago, or, you know, more than 20 years ago now, actually. But yeah, he would kind of try coax. He also had his own problems, a lot of trauma in his own family. So obviously a lot of that's how narcissism is born, when you don't have your needs met as a child, because your body you don't know how to deal with it, you scapegoat it onto someone else. So that's exactly how you might see in the news that some, you know, say social media bullying and kids taunt other kids to commit suicide, and the kids do commit suicide. And then you'll see sometimes these kids in a court trial, for example, and they have no emotion because they're narcissists. Because narcissists, their whole method of survival is have no emotion. It's happening to someone else. You're not the loser, they're the loser. So I've done a lot of research and work in that space, courses on like healing from toxic relationships, things like that. So where I came to that point of trying to commit suicide, you can kind of, when you look back at my life, you can actually, it makes a lot of sense in a way.
Yeah, you could find the seeds or the foundations back in your past. Now, am I right in thinking? Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I right in thinking this whole situation made you decide to change careers and enter into the healing space? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was a personal trainer. Obviously, I enjoyed working out. Like fitness was a massive part of my life. So I always wanted to help people and do something meaningful, but I kept getting pulled back into that sort of corporate. There was also part of like a thing with my marriage, like that's not a real job. Go get a real job like everybody else. So there was a lot of creativity that I had in me, and I always felt like I was destined for something more, but I didn't really know what it was or how to find out what it was. But every time I tried, I get told like, no, that's stupid. Like you're never going to make it. Like, you're not Bill Gates, you're not whoever. Like if you were meant to be that person, you would have already been that by now. And that's, if you think about it, that's why 97, 98% of people don't go after their real dreams. And they don't even try to figure out what those dreams are, because they already think it's stupid or they already think it's not for them. And this is when I ended my marriage, so I didn't leave straight away. I had a plan. And then I left and I implemented that plan. When I left my marriage, I was like, that's my purpose. To help other people like me, or not even like me, other people see that it's never too late. And there's a lot you can do just with self-belief and self-love and self-assurance. And like, you don't even know what I've achieved in the last 3 months. And I spent my whole life trying to achieve those things I've achieved in the last 3 months, right? So, and I deal with this every day with my one-on-one coaching. So I do a lot of career transition coaching. So people their roles have been made redundant and they basically need help transitioning, like what do they do next? And most people don't really stop to even ask themselves, like they view it as like this catastrophic event, like they're not good enough, like now it's inconvenienced them. They had a safety net. Now they've got to, now I've got to go find the same thing somewhere else. Whereas I take that as a massive opportunity to, like, this is your chance to change the entire trajectory of your life.
Yeah. Reinvent yourself. Yeah. It's funny, there's always two ways of looking at it, and in both cases, you're right. If you think, hey, this is really shit, then it's going to be shit. If you think, well, I can reinvent myself, I can impact people, I can do this, I can do that, I can earn more money than I ever have, then you're right as well. If you were coaching someone, let's say it was someone similar to you, okay? They were a new mum, maybe they're around the same age, and they had packed on some weight, and you knew, hey, it's deeper than just the physical. Give me 3 things for the audience that they can do, both emotionally, maybe spiritually as well, and then 3 things they can do that are like tangible physical things that could be nutritional, working out, or whatever. Can we run through that?
Yeah, let's start with the tangible things, because I think they're all things people know, and basically it's really obvious. Like nutrition, it goes beyond just counting calories. It affects your brain, like how you function. So if you're not feeding yourself and you're trying to get these big results, you're just stressing your body, and your body's actually going to reject it more. So everything you do is energetically intertwined. So I always kind of liken it to like a magnet. If you've got 2 of the opposite sides, it's just going to repel each other. Doesn't matter how much you're trying to force it together. So the most tangible is you don't need to go full throttle from the beginning, because that's how you burn out. And people get into this mindset like, oh, I need to do an 8-week challenge. I need to go to 1,200 calories. I need to work out 6 times a week. Like, actually, that's the worst way you could start. After my suicide attempt, so that's when I was at my heaviest after having my daughter, I went back to the gym. I knew what to do. Like, I'm a qualified personal trainer. I know nutrition. But my only goal was to get inside the gym, right? My goal was not to go kill, like, poor choice of words. My goal was not to go into the gym and try be like a bodybuilder. My goal was just to show up, right?
I love
it. Showing up goes beyond just being at the gym. Showing up if you've read Atomic Habits, for example, like, you need to build a habit. And the habit at that point, the thing you're missing is not that you have to do specific exercises. You're actually not getting to the gym. And when you think it's not worth it or it's too hard or you're too tired, you just don't show up. So everything you will do in your life that's related to success is about showing up even when you don't feel like it, even when you can't give it 100%. And it's about knowing how to dial yourself up and down. So you still show up, but if your 100% for the day is actually your 50%, you just show up. So when I started back at the gym, my only goal was to get to the gym and to do a 30-minute walk on the treadmill, no incline, nothing. That's it. And I did it. And by the time I got to that 2 weeks, I was ready for more.
Yeah.
So the very most tangible thing, and I think it actually just encompasses all three, it's like just building that habit of showing up and not having that mentality that it has to be perfect. Because that's where people slip up. They think they have to have the perfect meal plan, the perfect workout outfit, the perfect gym routine, whatever. And when it doesn't work perfectly for just one day, it's all over. It's like, they'll be doing it for 6 days straight, and then one day something happened because life happens. Your kids get sick, projects get thrown at you at work, your car breaks down, whatever, you get sick. But people really, that one thing happens and it's just all over. Like, the dream's gone. Like, oh, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
You know? So that's in terms of the tangible stuff. Just show up, and everybody innately knows what they should do without being told. Like, you kind of know that a healthy, like, chicken, brown rice salad with maybe some feta or something is better than McDonald's. Like, everybody knows intrinsically, without being told what to do, what feels right. Like, we're born with it, really. Like, it's in our genetics to know what feels right. So the most tangible, just show up. And for everything, for the gym, for nutrition, for yourself, for your work, like, it doesn't have to be perfect, because when you let go of it having to be perfect, that's when you actually get your best results, because there's no pressure and there's no feeling of failure.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really resonating with me. My KPI, for want of another word, when I first started was I just need to walk inside the gym. Like, that was the only thing I had to do. And of course, once I was there, it was like, oh, well, let's check some stuff out and have some fun, move my body. Yeah, very, very important. Cool. Let's unlock the mind. Let's dive a little deeper into what's under the hood here.
I'm trained in NLP as well. So a lot of this is not just I've been through it and this is what you should do. Everything I've been through, I've also backed up with education and a lot of learning as well. So it's really like peeling an onion. So people think, for example, I feel like shit. If I lose 10 kgs, I'll feel good. So that's like very, very simplistic. But there's so many layers under that. So mentally, what you actually need to do is go, I need to lose 10 kgs, or I want to lose 10 kgs. What does losing that 10 kgs actually give you as a person? And And it's doing it beyond like weight. You need to do it. First of all, you need to do it for you and not for someone else. If you're wanting to look hot for your husband or because a lot of people hold on to a version of themselves that they used to love, right? For example, your best memories could be of you as 18-year-old Kevin. You're like, you've got your mates, maybe you've got a hot girlfriend, you had you could work out whenever you wanted. There was not as much financial pressure perhaps. So you have this memory of what, like, your ultimate version of yourself, the memory of it. What a lot of women do when they have kids, and I hear this all the time, what they're really holding on to is that version of themselves that they used to love. But then what they spend all their future doing is trying to be that person again. Right? The reality is you will never be that person again because nothing is the same as it was before. You didn't have kids. You might not have had a husband at that point. You might have not been in a high pressure career or whatever. Everything has changed. So it's letting go of trying to make it how it used to be, because that's in the past, right? That's gone. But you don't need that version of you anymore. What you need now is the next version of you. So what I find mentally is people get stuck on how they used to be, and they think if they could just go back to that, things will go back to exactly how they were. But they can't, because nothing in your life is how it was then, right? Like so if your best memory is when your child was 1 and your child's 18, your child's never going to be 1 again, right? So mentally, you have to recreate yourself, but you have to have a vision. Because what people do is they start doing things like, oh, I'll take this promotion. Oh, I'll do this 8-week challenge. I'll do this. I'll find a boyfriend, whatever. So they kind of try to find a solution and hope that something resonates when they do it. But you're actually doing it wrong. You need to have the vision first, and then your purpose is to do everything that's required of you to make that vision come true.
So if the vision is of them, like you were saying so eloquently in your 18-year-old story, if their vision is of them when they're younger, they could be 18, they could be 23, whatever, but now they're, say, mid-30s, but they're still stuck in the past, how do they create a vision that fits where they are right now in this period of time?
Well, if they're stuck in the past, that would indicate that there's unresolved feelings with the past. It will be, perhaps you don't like the idea of getting old, but that could also be tied against like peeling the onions. It could be different for everybody, right? Like how I feel about aging, the negative feelings I have may not be the same as the negative feelings you have for aging, for example. But it's getting self-aware and deep enough with yourself to understand what is the actual problem. So if you've got a problem with aging, but your goal may be to be happy, how are you going to be happy if you constantly feel like you're never going to be able to let that go? And that's why people get obsessed with, like, say, plastic surgery and things like that, because they get obsessed with a version that they can't have, essentially.
Yeah,
And
so it's pinpointing the actual problem.
Exactly.
And let's take care of that, yeah.
It's pinpointing the problem and accepting it for what it is. Like, I accept I'll never get a do-over of my life. Like, I accept the things that I've done, people that I've attracted, relationships that I've been in, from not being naive or not knowing myself enough at that time to do the right thing for me. So that was like a big pivotal thing for me. Like I blamed myself for attracting the wrong people and, maybe how my dad treated me or how my parents treated me, how my boyfriends then treated me, how things were in my marriage. Accepting that you did the best you could do with the resources and information you had at that time, and accepting that you didn't know what you didn't know, regardless of if you think you should have known, because that's still not accepting fully of how it happened, right? Because then you kind of feel like that's kind of the catch-22 I used to have, like knowing that I didn't know better and that's why I was where I was, but now I know better. But then also kind of having a foot in the past and being like, fuck, if I knew better, like none of those things would have happened. But accepting that they happened how they happened, and I love who I am now, and I cannot tell you that I could have got to this point without those experiences.
Yeah.
So accepting every shitty thing that's happened to me in my life and almost being, in a weird way, grateful, because this version I have of me 10 years ago, I would have laughed and said that you're crazy. There's no way I could have been like this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like I'd never take it back. I accept all those moments where I felt ashamed of myself or embarrassed or things I did. Maybe I got a little bit too drunk or whatever, or, like you get involved with someone you should have no business getting involved in or whatever, like, because at the end of the day, we all just want to feel good. And that's why you have people that are addicted to drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever it is, overeating, things like that, because that's how that person knows how to make themselves feel good when they don't feel good.
Yeah, it's feeling good in that moment, right? It's a crutch. It's a quick, momentary
dopamine hit.
Yeah.
But just being like, I accept and forgive myself for dealing with it in unhealthy ways, because at that time I didn't know how else to deal with it. Yeah. But now I know, and now I know I'm not going to do that again. So I think like a lot of people can't forgive themselves, right? Yeah. And I think that's what keeps you when you're trying to put one foot in front but one foot in the past, like that's what keeps you in the past, by not accepting that now you have the power to be even better. You could be clutching onto the 18-year-old self, but can you honestly tell me that 18-year-old self, like, were you a self-developed? Did you do so much personal development? Do you know the things you know now back then that you could honestly say you had all the skills and resources when you were 18 to be your absolute best self now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there's a difference between guilt and remorse, right? And I mean, something I do is I just say, well, I cannot change one single thing in the past. It's already happened. It's already been. But I can certainly enjoy today. I can be kind to other people today. And I can plan for an amazing future for tomorrow. If, just before we wrap up, Eugenia, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I'm so sick of myself, I'm in this crazy loop similar to what you were going through, I want to take the power back. I don't want to be, whether they're feeling like one or they're perceived as one, a victim. I want to be in control of my destiny. What is one thing? What's the first thing? For example, if you're doing free diving, the first thing you do when you come to the surface is you need to take a breath of air, right? Yeah. If they're feeling like that, like they're submersed under this massive emotional weight, they're coming back to the surface, what's the first thing they should do?
I'll give you a little mind bender. For anyone that feels like they've lost power and they need it back, you never lost it. You've actually got the power right now. The power, if you can decide, you could be listening to this right now and say, from this moment, it ends now. And I start working on the best version of myself now. Your power's there now. Like, that's your power. Being able to say that I have all the power right now to make this decision and change. So you never lost the power. There was nothing. This is something I had to get my head around. You never lost something and now you're trying to get it back from somebody. It's actually, you got it in you right now. It's just the moment it changes is the moment you actually unequivocally decide that this is how it's going to be. It's when you're flip-flopping, you're like, oh, I want to do it, but then, oh, but what if this happens and this happens, and what if this person won't like me, and what if this creates issues? That's when you haven't unequivocally decided. The moment you are like, this ends now, that's a fact, that's a decision. That's where your power starts. And then you just keep fueling that. Another thing you brought up was kindness. And the key is kindness with yourself. So to not know exactly what to do in every single moment something happens, to have the kindness with yourself that sometimes you may have situations where you've got to figure it out a little bit and you've got to test what works, what doesn't work, especially like if you're a people pleaser, you have weak boundaries, or maybe you don't have weak boundaries, but with specific people or situations, you fold. If you just show up one day you had zero boundaries and all of a sudden you're like, stop, I don't accept this. Of course that person's going to be like, please, you've been like coming back for 3 years or whatever, like I'll break you down or I'll find a way. It's about reinforcing those boundaries, and you're not going to do it perfectly every time. And sometimes you might be like, oh, I could have done that better or whatever. But your job is to keep showing up. So that's the key. Everything in your life, you just keep showing up until you've done it enough times that you know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. So it's having that. One, you've already got the power right now. You just don't believe you do. Right? So there's a belief issue. And then 2, it's being kind with yourself and not having to be perfect from the outset. Because having to be perfect implies that you've already done it and you already know how to do it. But if you're doing something you've never done before, how can you be perfect at it? No one's like born on the Olympic stage, right? They train multiple hours a day since they were like 9, some of them, younger, to be perfect. Right. So like that's what it really comes down to.
Solid advice. Eugenia, thank you for being on 100 Pounds to Freedom. I appreciate you sharing your story. There was some really personal things there that the audience has the pleasure to listening to your vulnerability to help impact other lives. Love your energy. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers.
Awesome. Bye.